The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, folks. This is Wednesday, April 9th, and this is our 6th EPIP webinar of 2014, Philanthropy with a small p, race, crowdfunding, and community. I am your EPIP host, Michael Barham. We have a number of speakers here with us today. We're going to have a fun panel. We're going to start with William Ché Nembhard, then pass it over to Omisade Burney-Scott, Cedric Brown, William Buster, and Dwayne Patterson. We're going to be talking about crowdfunding, talking about philanthropy with a small p, community philanthropy, and philanthropy towards racial equity. So, a great conversation. And, before we get into that, for those of you unfamiliar with EPIP, we're a national network of foundation professionals and social entrepreneurs who strive for excellence in the practice of philanthropy. Our mission is to develop emerging leaders committed to building a just, equitable, and sustainable society. Few announcements. This is a perfect lead into our conference coming up in June. We're partnering with the joint affinity groups from June 5th to 8th in Washington, D.C. It's the Unity Summit. We're going to be talking about advancing equity of all types, of course, across racial and gender lines. And registration's open. We've got a lot of folks already registered. Early bird registration ends next week. So it's time to get on it. It's going to be a fabulous conference. Another upcoming webinar 2 weeks from today, 3 p.m. It's an EPIP webinar. Serve on a board, save the world, and advance your career. You're going to be learning, if you're interested, on how to join a board and do some good beyond just what you're doing in your day-to-day profession. And as always, check the epip.org/events webpage for upcoming events near you or on the national level. And for those of you not yet EPIP members, now is a great time as ever to join. We've got a lot of webinars just like this coming up over the next few months, and of course our national conference and great local events as well. So if you're interested, please contact me. I'm happy to answer all sorts of questions. Okay, we're about to get started. A few items of housekeeping before I pass it over to our panelists. For those of you attending, you're all on mute. If you are calling in on the phone, please make sure to mute your computer. We want to avoid echo if we can. If you have questions, we're going to be answering those throughout, and certainly we'll reserve a little time at the end of the broadcast. So please use your question box, and I'll be keeping an eye on that for you. And we are recording this webinar, so if you ever have to hop off for any reason, you'll be able to find it on our EPIP YouTube page and on the EPIP website within a week or two. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to William Ché Nembhard. Ché is the student who was intimately involved in this crowdfunding effort, and obviously had a lot of support from great people in the field. And he's going to tell us a little bit about his story, and what went right, what went wrong, and what he's planning on doing next. So, hey, Ché.
Hey, Michael, how's it going? Hello to everyone that came out to learn a little bit more about crowdfunding and philanthropy with a little p. Like Michael said, my name is William Ché Nembhard. I just go by Ché for short. I am a international affairs major and cultural anthropology minor at Howard University in Washington, D.C., our capital. My tie to crowdfunding basically started, I want to say, going on now maybe 6 or 7 months ago, maybe a little longer now, but it's basically was spawned from the fact that I was unable to attend school last semester. And the reason behind that was that I had been offered a grant my junior year of college. I'm a senior now. I had been offered a grant my junior year of college that I expected to roll over both semesters, and it didn't. And I wasn't told until the end of the semester, once I'd already been given a delinquent account balance, which I could not pay off within a week of registration for classes. So I basically had to take off that semester and figure out a way to get the money together to save up and come back. So I got a job. I worked at Whole Foods Market on 14th and P, basically full time, but with part time benefits for a good 7 months straight. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna save. I'm gonna live in DC. I'm not gonna go home. I'm not gonna give up. It's you know in thought and in wording, it seems easy, but saving, and especially in DC with how it is now in terms of affordability of living, it's damn near impossible. Especially being or not having a degree, being a student, being under the age of 25, it's difficult to have a position where you make enough money to save. So, you know, working all those months, I saved little to nothing just because I had to pay fees to live. I had to eat. I had to travel sometimes. I had to transport myself to work. I had to be dressed. I had to do things that required money, and it was harder than I thought. And basically, you know, I was in a place in October of last year where I was really contemplating will I be able to come back. And my mother, Omisade, whose screen you guys can see, she had the idea to pair me up with about 6 individuals who I had already met in the first place. They weren't even new. They were friends and family from over the past couple of years or longer in terms of some people my mother knew from college. But the thing was that when we all got together on the phone, it was a phone conference while I was in New York at one point. One of the ideas that came up from Cedric Brown, who was on the call, he was like, "Have you ever looked into crowdfunding?" Which I had. It seemed interesting. I looked into Kickstarter actually, and it seemed like a serious gamble. With Kickstarter, if you don't make your full amount, they send the money back to the people that funded it. So, if say my goal was $12,000, I would, if I made $11,999 and my goal was 12, and then my time ran out, I would get no money at all. So I looked into it. I thought it was kind of like a fool's gold scheme for them to get their fees or whatever out of everything. But then I found Indiegogo, where you're allowed to keep the money regardless. If you make 5 or if you make 20, you keep what you make. So uh, and including that, the other people who were a part of that conversation, Dwayne and William, who are both on the call, they had ideas about internships, about you know creating some type of drive, which some of them I'm actually still keeping in the back burner. But the crowdfunding one really sprung out to me as a plausible idea. And I sat down phone wise with Cedric, and we had like a 2-hour conversation about what it should consist of, how to word things, and how to make it understood that the reason why I wanted to get the money was not just to pay for school, but to pay for school so that I could do something with the degree that would benefit society as a whole. It was getting across that I wasn't doing it just for me, but I was doing it so I could do things for other people. And I think that was a really deciding factor in not just making my goal, but making it within, I want to say, 2 days, tripling it within a week and a half. And the entire campaign was a month long. So by the end of it, I had almost quadrupled what I needed to get back to school. And it really just went to show that when you explain yourself to the community, and when you prove that it's not for selfish gain that you're asking for money, or it's not for selfish gain to build something for yourself, it's to benefit people beyond yourself. At some point, the community really does hear you, and they were forthgiving, and they helped me out, and I was able to come back to school, and I'm in school now. So it was a really amazing experience that I'll probably tell my kids about how Dad got back into school, but not by himself, with all over the world.
That's really interesting, Ché. I'm wondering, because I know you told me in our past conversations what you learned, what you might have done differently.
Right. Yeah. Well, post my campaign, once it ended, I actually looked up more information on what makes crowdfunding work interestingly enough, crowdfunding seems to be about 300% more effective when there's a video attached, and which explains what's already written, and then about 150% more effective when there are incentives. Whereas, if you donate this much, we give you this. If you donate this much, you're invited to this and such. And I didn't use either of those, so I really got lucky. After looking that up, I was like, wow. So I really, you know, caught a break because I didn't use either of those. But looking back on it now, I feel like I'm definitely blessed for what I got. But I wonder a lot. What if I put a video? What if which I did put a video at the end. What if I had put a video explaining it at the beginning? Or what if I had offered those incentives? That's 450% higher success rate than what it was with what I just had, which was already successful in the first place. So those are probably the only two things that I would change. Otherwise, I think it works great. Our outreach approach was really good. My mother did some stuff on it. Well, everyone who contributed at least tried to send it out to 5 other people, which is what I asked in the campaign. I said, if you can't donate, at least send this small short link to 5 to 10 people who you think may be interested. Not to donate, but just to send it to them anyway. I think that really made a difference because I had people from Australia, from Japan, places that I've never been and that I don't know anyone in. So I think that made a difference too. Was the tactic of not just asking solely for money, but asking for people who see your page to be a part of the outreach in the first place. So on the woulda, coulda, shoulda side, it's the video and the incentives, but on the excellent, I guess, execution side, it was the outreach, which was also kind of a brainchild of myself and Cedric Brown. So
Great.
those are the good stuff.
That's great. So Omi, you are, as the mother, involved in this and kind of one of the instigators, of course, behind this. Why don't you tell us the role you played? I'm sure you did a lot of coordination. So tell us kind of the role you played when this got started.
Cool, thank you. If there's an echo, I want to apologize. I think I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties, but some additional things I would add to the story that Ché shared so eloquently is that one of the reasons why Ché received that grant is that I was laid off from my employment during that year, the end of his sophomore year going into his junior year. I was working at a YWCA in Raleigh, North Carolina, and the entire staff was actually laid off. And it was a real profound kind of economic hit for our family because I had been able to, with support from other family members, from his dad, from his godparents and other members of our amazing community of folk, put the monies together to make sure that Ché had what he needed for school. And when I got laid off from work, initially Howard responded amazingly. We were like, wow, this is great. He's going to have the money he needs. He'll be able to be in school. There's not going to be a hiccup. That was going to give me time to get back into a full-time job and, hopefully things would go well.
Yeah, and it was actually, it was a woman. It was one woman. It wasn't even Howard itself. I was living in a place called Meridian Hill Hall, which is a dormitory in Columbia Heights in D.C. And there was a woman, her name was Miss Jackie. Miss Jackie was not an administrator. Miss Jackie was not a dean. I think she was one of the keepers of the hall. She just, helped with the upkeep. And she wrote a letter for me to our student administration, to Houston. It's called Howard University Student Administration. And again, this ties into the community getting money. But she herself was the factor that got me that. I didn't ask her to do it either. I told her my story, I think, in passing when I was standing outside one day. And, next thing you know, she wrote a letter, she sent it in. And I was just looking at my account one day and it was there. And I had to track down who gave it to me. And it was in it. So that was cool way to start this entire journey.
And so to have someone listen to his story and say, listen, young man, we want to make sure you can stay in school. Great. So, we did that. And then things, as things happen on college campuses, whoever was the benefactor of this grant fund or pool of funds, I don't know what happened to it. But what we found out is that he was not going to get that going into the end of his junior year. So we were trying to figure out what we were going to do. And there was just no way that I had, several $1,000s of discretionary funds kind of hanging out at my house or at the bank. So we said we need to reach out to some more people for support. And one of the things that I was very impressed by with Ché is that Ché is a community kid. He's a community man. But when he was growing up, he was a community kid. And so every meeting I ever went to, every action I participated in, or campaign, or boards I was on, Ché was there. Conferences, he was there. So there have been these relationships developed since he was 2 years old with a number of the people. We were like, listen, who are a small group of people who will understand what your journey is as an African-American man trying to get out of school and not stopping school because you had an academic issue, but because it was financial, who will support you. So Cedric and I actually went to UNC Chapel Hill together as undergraduates, and Ché had done an internship program with Cedric at the Kapor Center after his freshman year. Ché's known William and Dwayne since he was 2 years old. Milano Harden, Chad Jones, and Marcus Littles, who met Ché through me in my work in philanthropy. These were the names that we kind of kicked around, and Ché said, I want to reach out to these guys and see if they will help me think about what I can do. And I asked what role I could play in that process, and he said, I want you to stand down. I want you to let me take this. I don't want you to have to worry about it, which was tremendous for me to have my 21-year-old say he wanted me to not have to worry about it. So I did what I know how to do. I helped him with the conference call. I took notes. When he put together his plan with Cedric, he included me on the conference call, but I was not in the lead. This was really Ché's journey. This was Ché's challenge to navigate. And that's hard for a mom to not want to continue to take something on that her child is really struggling with, in particular because I felt like this was me not being able to do what I had agreed to do when he went off to college, that I would make sure he had what he needed to finish school. And I couldn't make that happen. And so that meant that I also had to put my pride aside because there was going to be a public kind of accounting in our story around here's where we are and here's why we are where we are. And so these 6 men stood up beautifully and said, yes, of course we'll help you. Let's think about it. Let's be creative. Let's figure it out. And all the things that we know to be true about giving came forth in such a powerful way. All the things that we know to be true that are not visible, but are very true for me in my personal life and professional life about the power of Black men being in community and being co-conspirators with each other and being successful came to bear in this situation. I also was really blown away by the love and support he received from people who attend historically Black colleges and universities, not necessarily Howard University, but different HBCUs across the country who said, we want to help this young man finish school. So it was a tremendous journey for Ché, but also a tremendous journey for me. And I don't know what else I can say about the process. It's just I really believe in the power of philanthropy, and I certainly believe in the power of community. And it means a lot to have people who are not physically or blood relatives surround Ché with this amount of love and faith and belief in him.
That's beautiful. This is Cedric Brown. I'm going to jump in here. I was certainly moved to participate in this effort after, as Omisade said, we've known each other since our days at the University of North Carolina. I've been a an admirer of hers, of her fierceness and intelligence and presence. And then when I had the opportunity to meet Ché and to have him come to the then Kapor Foundation to do an internship, a brief summer internship with us, I got to admire similar qualities in him. Certainly his intelligence. He's a very quick study. He's very bright and takes the initiative. He actually taught our staff how to use Prezi, which is presentation software that until then we had not known, and now that's the standard that we use. So when I got this call about this opportunity to help them brainstorm about resources to help to get Ché back to school and through school, it was a no-brainer to step up and to contribute in the ways that I felt like I could. In part because this aligns so well with work that I'm already doing in the philanthropic sector and professionally, in part because as the co-founder of the College Bound Brotherhood, I can't work with organizations that are trying to get African-American young men in and through college on one hand, but then not make a personal commitment to do it in this individual instance on another hand. I was also motivated in part because of the power of this story and the power of this particular family, which had the circumstances been a little bit different, meaning the people involved, I'm not sure what the level of success would have been, but knowing how these folks move through the community and have really garnered so much support and love and admiration from many folks that they've touched, I knew that this had the potential to be something great. And lastly, I also have known the power of crowdfunding, a well-strategized crowdfunding campaign, after having, through some of my work at the Kapor Center, supported strategizing around crowdfunding for Black Girls Code, after personally having supported some crowdfunding efforts in the Oakland and San Francisco Bay Area, namely Impact Hub Oakland. Both of these campaigns were enormously successful because they were really well thought out, really well executed. And I just thought, here's an example where we may be able to bring this particular tool, this web-based tool that takes advantage of the social media networks that exist, and to raise money for this young man, this well-deserving young man who has a great story to tell, and we know that a few dollars from many people will be put to good use. So this ended up being one of the most beautiful things I think I was involved in all year. And the success of this campaign actually inspired me to engage in two other philanthropic efforts personally. One is that I joined a giving circle comprised of other AFFE fellows in my particular cohort. I was an AFFE fellow in 2007, Association of Black Foundation Executives. So we created a giving circle. And then I also decided to start a prize, an award for African-American young men in Oakland, where I live, and in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where I'm from. Named it after my grandfather, and am going to implement a very small crowdfunding campaign to help raise some of the funds for that modest award. So I think that by being involved in these individual instances, this small P philanthropy, it grows in potentially exponential ways. Ché is able to go to school, he's able to finish this degree, he's able to move on to the greatness that we expect of him. We've also been able to look at the effect on us as professionals personally, and the ways that we might engage in philanthropy on a personal level, in addition to the work that we do for our institutions, and have the two of those things complement one another. And I'll stop there.
Thanks a lot, Cedric. I think it's always great to hear about how we kind of feel that these two aspects of philanthropy can intersect. I think we also have William on the line with us. William works with the Kellogg Foundation and is actually on his way. I believe he's in Mississippi now. Are you there, William?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, yeah, I'm on a road in Mississippi, and if any of y'all have ever been to Mississippi, y'all know what I'm doing. I'm driving, so I had to pull over and do this call.
Well, that is
I
dedication. Thank you, William.
this is what we do. I got involved because it wasn't even about getting involved. I don't think I've ever been uninvolved in Ché's life since he was little, and for me, I live by many of you who know me, I live by a proverb. I love proverbs, and one of my favorite proverbs is an Akan proverb that says, "Life is war, and family is the army." And when you get the call from family, this is what you do. You do what you're supposed to. You stand in the gap. And so, so personally, it was an opportunity to just turn my attentions of how all the work that I do outside of my family, outside of the folks that I personally know, and bring to bear the passion that I have for helping people to those very folks that I know who are closest to me. I think of this, this particular approach is something that I think I've had the opportunity to reflect on a little. And one of the things that I think often that we in this field, we in the organized philanthropy field, get in this modality of is that we're always churning things outwardly. We always are putting things out, and particularly in social change philanthropy. And any of you who are students of social change movements, or particularly the civil rights movement, know that oftentimes the people with the most jacked up family lives are the folks who are the hardest workers in the movement. And I'm always thinking about that, constantly reflecting on how we push outwardly and never pull inwardly for our families. And so it's made me think about, then how do you bring to bear? Because many of us on this call have many different relationships, and that's another key aspect of this, is that you realize you don't take stock until you have to all the different ways in which you've touched people, you've worked with people, you've expanded networks. And I just believe that network analysis and understanding the networks that you are connected to is critical to your success. And so being able to kind of utilize the networks that I've been a part of, the relationships that I've fomented over my 14 years in philanthropy to help a family member it's been very moving for me, and it's helped me to remember that you can't always push out. You need to pull in a little bit. I think from the field's perspective, I think one of the things that I've also thought about is then how do you actively get younger folks engaged in the social change work? And so, as Omisade said, Ché has been by her side as she's gone in and out of a lot of the work that she's done over the decades that she's been in this, and particularly for all of his life. And for me, looking at it now, like Ché is now a man, and Ché is now a person who's willing to kind of be a part of the circle that we've all kind of been a part of, moving social change forward in this country. Definitely. And for me, I wanted to make sure that I had the opportunity now, being in this field, that now that he's able to be in this space, how do we tap his mind? How do we tap his energy to be actively? And if we weren't able to get him through school and finish school, I don't know if we were able to do that. We'd be able to do that. So now, Ché, I don't know if he knows, but now he's on a lot of our lists on things that he has to do next for working for our people, for working for the communities. And so I'm excited now. I'm excited that he's going to be able to finish the school, and I'm excited about what happens next now that we as a community have been able to remove another obstacle from his path. So I'll stop there and turn it over back to you, Michael.
Thanks a lot, William. I think we have Dwayne with us too. Dwayne, tell us a little bit about kind of how you got involved and your thoughts on this too. Dwayne, we can't hear you yet.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you loud and clear now, Dwayne.
Is that better?
That's perfect.
Okay. I think the wonderful part that I want to lift up about the story is that Ché never gave up on himself. He had a dream of going to school. I think the original dream, to be a little facetious, was to attend North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, and somehow it got adjusted to a DC location. But I digress. But he had a dream, and he never gave up on himself. He never gave up on his dream. And it is my pleasure. It was my pleasure to know him, and to know his dream, and to know his family, as a young black man who wanted to attend a HBCU, and ended up attending North Carolina Agricultural Technical State University. I had a dream as well, and there were so many obstacles to my dream, and the obstacles were not of my own design. The obstacles included just not knowing how to navigate the financial responsibility of attending a historically black college and university here in the U.S. It included attempting to figure out how to maintain relationships in the process of my studies. My family at that time was living in California, and I took a bus from LA to Greensboro. And that's how I started in 1990 at A&T. And so for a young man to say, I need help in figuring out how to make my dream a reality, I was compelled by a force much greater than me to get involved and to be fully in. And one of the things that I knew how to do is to connect my networks and to allow Ché to feel absolutely inspired by his one step forward, that it would be doubled and tripled into more and more steps until his dream became a reality. So it was a pleasure. It was absolutely a pleasure. And since then, attempting to ground his process in undergrad, to figure out how he's going to use his undergrad degree and eventually his graduate degree to help his community, to help the very same community that helped him, that to plant in his mind, or to replant in his mind, that getting a degree is not enough, that you have to figure out how to use your skills to help someone while you're helping yourself. And that's been a real pleasure as well. He is fertile ground. He is not only using some of the skills and techniques that I've used, but he's innovating and coming up with new ways to help his community. And it's wonderful.
That's great. Thanks so much, Dwayne. I think we are done a bit early here, folks. So if you have questions for anyone involved, I think Cedric, I know, had to hop off a bit early, but everyone else is here to answer your questions. I think this has really been a great learning experience. It's wonderful to see Ché participate, and I know I've known a lot of folks in their young 20s in my day, and I rarely have come across someone as mature as Ché and impressive at your age, Ché.
Thank you.
And it's wonderful to see folks working in the field and still, maintaining that commitment to supporting, people close to them. And supporting family on that local level. And I think it's important for those of us working in the social sector and in philanthropy, to never lose sight of, making sure the people around us have that same support. And I think it's easy to do so, and it's inspiring to see how many people came together to support Ché. And also, I think it's going to be wonderful, down the road to see what Ché does next, because it seems like you have a lot on the horizon. So that's wonderful. And I actually looks like we have a question. I'm going to put this out to our group, our panelists, and if any of you want to take this question, you can jump in. It's from Arian, and the question is for students that find themselves in Ché's situation, that aren't aware of his story or the resources like crowdfunding that are available to them. How can we promote this and scale it up so we can have more success stories like Ché? That's a great question. Thanks, Arian. And I think anyone want to jump in, and even Ché, because you might, probably the most technologically savvy out of everyone else on the call. So you might have the best answer.
Skills, but yeah. Okay. I think I would answer it by saying that, with my generation, we are the social media generation. For all intents and purposes, we are the internet generation. We were there when it became commercialized. We were there when, computers became affordable. We were there when the internet became your right hand. So I think if a philanthropic group really wants to reach my age group, which is, I guess you could say 17 to 25, and inform them about different types of ways to go to school and be able to afford it. Because I think there is definitely a self-fulfilling prophecy of defeat right now that's kind of spreading in some facets of my generation, in that, I can't afford school. Even if I could afford school, I can't get in because now they're getting strict because school is so expensive and people can't go. It just seems like it's dwindling. But these type of opportunities like crowdfunding could really reach them through family and through friends and through social media. Using social media to tell people to use social media sounds kind of weird, but it works. My story was put in a newsletter. That's a great way to do it, through email. There's Tumblr, which is a pictorial kind of blog site where you can post images of people's success stories. There's Facebook, obviously, which is, the
How much do you use Twitter and Facebook, Ché?
I personally deleted my Facebook intentionally when I came into Howard, not because I wanted to distance myself from family and friends, or because I wanted to
Be more private?
Yeah, be more private. Neither of those was the reason. The main reason was that I saw what it was becoming, in terms of, I think I had my first Facebook page when I was 13 or 14. Back when it was solely for college students. Old people over 24 didn't know about it, and I don't even remember how I found out about it. But since then, the amount of information that people give on Facebook is it's astounding. I was taking a computers and society course last like about two semesters ago, and one of the assignments was to find yourself. And he had a search database that he gave us. You put your name in, and it brings up a lot of different information. For mine, I found like two things. I found when someone claimed me on my taxes when I was like 3, and I found the zip code of where my mother lived. Now, my friend Jasmine, who has a Facebook page, when she put her name in, they found YouTube videos of her in her track records. They found her mother's address. They found her address. They found the last 2 digits of her social. They found when she graduated, what college she went to. These type of things made me a little, nervous.
A little wary.
To have a Facebook. Yeah. But same time, though, the population of Facebook, I think, is bigger than like almost a continent now. So at the same time, when you're reaching out to people to support a cause, I think there's nothing more fundamental than to start with Facebook. Now Twitter and now Instagram, which I think is actually posed to kind of wash out Twitter soon, because you can both. It's a combination of Twitter and Facebook, in my opinion. It's kind of like a minimalist form of the two. But these websites, people check within the half hour of every hour that they're awake. You know, I know some people that are literally on Instagram. You know, first thing that people do when they wake up is they check their tweets, they check their mentions, or they check their Instagram followers. Is it up? Is it down? Who posted what? So utilizing these mediums, you know, regardless of if you post it once or if you post it 20 times, someone is going to see it, someone may favor it, and someone may repost it. But I think what's important to note, you know, coming from me to you all and to whoever else is listening in the emerging practitioner world, is that it's less about posting and it's more about wording. You know, there are a lot of posts out there that get scrolled past, and it's not because they're not important, it's because they're not interesting. You know, they're probably interesting once you click the link, they're probably interesting once you follow up, but the point of social media nowadays is not to have to follow up. It's supposed to have face value, it's supposed to have the hook right there listed out. And, you know, if I were to have to give advice on how to inform the public, I would say be able to have exactly what you want to say, exactly how you want to reach out in a way that can pull people in 180 characters, regardless of if it's Twitter, which it has a limit of 180 characters, Facebook, which has like 3,000 characters, or Instagram, which has 100 characters. You know, you need to be able to start there and then expand from that, so that when someone reads it and they're like, oh, that sounds interesting, then they click it. But if it's something dry, if it's something that has no images, if it's something that has no link, they're far less likely to click on it. We are the generation of the short attention span. So if you want to get to us.
Ché Michael, excuse me. I'm sorry. It's Cedric, and I'm being summoned, so I want to say this one thing before I have to go back into the other meeting. Ché is now starting to talk about the importance of strategy when doing a crowdfunding campaign, and I really just want to underscore that it cannot be done scattershot, and in fact, it doesn't work for many people who embark on crowdfunding campaigns. There's a set of variables that are at play. What kinds of networks do you have? What kinds of small funds do people have access to in those networks? How willing will people be to share your story with others and pass it along? There are a set of variables at play that will help to determine whether or not a crowdfunding campaign will be successful. So I think that anyone who wants to use this kind of approach to raising money for school, and it can be a good approach, needs to really be thoughtful and thorough about planning out what the campaign is going to look like. And it indeed is a campaign. It should have a start, a middle, and an end. It should have goals. It should have levels at which people can give. As Ché spoke to earlier, it should have the potential of being able to report back or give something to people who decide to contribute. So there are many factors that go into play when putting something like this together. It absolutely cannot be a random request put out online, please help me by contributing to my school funds and you can send money to this address, because that kind of thing, more often than not, way more often than not, does not work. So that's all I wanted to add to it, but I think this kind of crowdfunding story appeals to the best in people's philanthropic intents, because they see where if I give $25, I could help this young man go to school and finish his degree, or this young person go to school and finish their degree. So sometimes they work, but they have to be planned out really well. And with that, I must go.
Thank you. This is Omi. I wanted to piggyback on Cedric, and thank you, Cedric. I wanted to say that the strategy piece that worked for Ché not being on Facebook is that we are on Facebook. So I'm on Facebook, you know, Cedric's on Facebook, Wayne, William. So there was Chad, Milano. So there were ways that what Ché put out, we strategically started to populate throughout social media. And we also would give people updates on where we were. So once he had surpassed his initial goal, like he raised $800 in, what was it, 4 hours? I don't remember.
I raised $1,200 in 10 hours.
And so we immediately knew that this was going to be a different kind of experience. And so by him not being on Facebook, but by us being on Facebook, it was possible for us to give people methodical, systematic updates, and also to encourage people to share. So we also specifically reached out to folk who were attending HBCUs, folk who were Howard alumni, local Howard alumni. So there were ways that for this young person who's interested in doing crowdfunding, to think about who the target audience is and how you let them know the success you're having and how to keep following up. And also when Ché paid his bill at Howard and received his letter that he could register for classes and it was time to come back and step back into that campus community, we let people know, and people celebrated with us. They were like, that's awesome information to know. And so in the same way that we let people know this conference call was happening, this webinar was happening today. So there has to be some considerations around what the follow-up is.
I think it's big too that I'm not an organization, I'm a person. So, and the people around me weren't 50 strong, and we don't have a 50-year-old foundation or philanthropic group. It was created in a night. So I think with an organization behind a crowdfunding, tactic, or behind any type of, resource gaining tactic, it can be even more successful than what I did. I don't want to do testament that, okay, I should go by myself and do something. If you have a team, to really sit down and create that strategy, my success could be small pickings in comparison.
Yes, and it sounds like you guys have already kind of touched on it. We had a question actually from Kia, and you guys have already gone into it a bit, but are there any other aspects of the specific strategy you all drew together? Because it sounds like, you were tapping into local networks, tapping into folks at HBCUs, obviously using social media, letting people know about, kind of how things were going, how things were progressing, and, offering different levels. So there's already a bunch of strategy. Are there any other specific strategic plans you all put together when you were building the campaign?
To be more specific, it was how the campaign actually looked, like how it was laid out. It wasn't by chance that my introduction was first, my reason for asking was second in a separate section, and then the money was there, and then the outreach was last. We did that on purpose because, we were trying to follow how people read in the first place. So, it started with a general introduction, but within that introduction, there are points that built upon what came next in the campaign itself.
And there was no video, Ché, but there was a visual of some sort, right? There was a photo too, right?
Yeah, that's really important. Again, we are the generation of short attention span, and then people who like to donate like to see who they're donating to in the first place. So even if you don't do a video, it's great to have an image, and it's great to have something, catchy to say. Like I think mine was called Operation Graduation, and then at one point it was trending the term "Rumble Young Man Rumble." Something that people can follow up on really easily. And I think another monumental thing, which I think I already touched on, was really explaining what the purpose is post you getting your money. I think when people say, can I have some money so I can finish school, I think, well, if I were donating, I would say, but what are you going to do with the degree? Take that degree from the wall and get a job, 5, or like, what are your plans afterwards? And I spent a while typing and retyping up, what doors that my degree would open to where I could affect people outside of myself. I think people are a lot more likely to donate when it's shown that the group of people who you affect are beyond yourself.
So if you said you were going straight to Wall Street, might not have gotten
I highly doubt
same reaction.
I highly doubt it. Okay. I think I said something like, which is true. My degree being international relations, me wanting to go into graduate school for foreign affairs, public policy, and or crisis mediation. Oh, and alternative energy. But these are the things that affect people, beyond one community, 7, but 10. Like these type of issues that arise within those topics can either make or break some societies. And I think, I really emphasize that I want to be one of those people that changes the game for someone who may not have a voice in whatever country, whatever American community. And I think that really was fundamental, especially when people were sending the link to other people who had never met them in the first place.
Right. That's great, Ché. Thanks. It looks like we don't have any other questions, so if any of our panelists don't have anything kind of left to jump in on, I think we covered a lot of this, and it was, I thought it was a really compelling story. And,
Michael, can I say one thing?
Sure, please.
I just want to lift up the fact that one thing that I don't want to get lost in the mix is that this campaign and this support was done with 7 Black men. And we get so much negative information about what Black men can do, what they will do, how they'll support each other intergenerationally. That this crowdfunding campaign, this ability for Ché to raise the funds that he needed to go back to school, the strategizing, the support, the prayers, the love, the encouragement, for him to see his reflection in them and for them to see him, that feels like something I want to have us end on, is that it was critical for him. I think I'll say for me, it was also critical for him to see that there were going to be a number of men who looked like him, who had gone through a journey like he had, that he was going through, and would support him.
I agree, for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that is a really important aspect of this, and I appreciate you ending on that note, Omi. And I think it will be great to see kind of how Ché carries this forward, because obviously, he feels to an extent indebted to these Black men who helped him.
To the community as a whole.
Yes, and to the community at large. So I think that's ultimately what this story is about, and it was a great one. And I just want to thank all the panelists for joining us. I know people joined us from far and wide, all across this very large country and on the sides of roads. So thank you all. And thank you, Ché. Thank you, Omi, William, Dwayne, Cedric. We are very appreciative at EPIP. And thank you to all those who joined. And, you'll have actually be prompted to complete a survey afterwards. We always want to learn about how you felt about the webinar and make things better. So we'd appreciate it if you take just a few minutes to fill that out. And just want to thank everyone again. This was a wonderful afternoon, and please enjoy the rest of the day, folks.
Mike, can I say one last thing?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Dwayne. Sorry.
I want to say to Ché and to all of the potential college graduates, rumble, young man, rumble, young woman, rumble.
Thank you, Dwayne. That's a note to end on, so I'll leave it with that. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Rumble.